Neil Katyal, the DOJ veteran, the former acting Solicitor General of the United States, who has argued dozens of cases before the Supreme Court, is of counsel to us for this conversation. Neil, I have two questions. Number one, about their lawyering. I don't think people watching have any other reaction except that their lawyering was relentless and effective. People are going to be relitigating this decision not to have witnesses forever. But you heard Mr. Raskin say, had they gone there, the other side would have likely turned it into a circus, and you would have had the Speaker of the House have to appear in the Senate chamber as a witness. My second question for you, please address a topic that is taking off among lawyers, both amateur and professional, and especially on social media, about this clause of the 14th Amendment that by a simple 51 vote, they could use to bar the former president from future office.
Okay, so first of all, Brian, watching them just now, the House managers did beautiful, beautiful work in prosecuting this case. Some of the best oral advocacy I've ever seen in my life. And that press conference, I think they sounded a little defensive, which is natural because everyone's beating them up on this or that. But nobody should take anything away from this performance. It was a performance for the ages. And yes, there was a tragic vote in which the Senate read the impeachment clause out of the Constitution, at least for January, and not for like some minor thing. But, the allegations here were an insurrection of the Capitol, and not just like on any day of the Capitol. It's not like they were voting on National Chocolate Day or something, but on literally the most sacred duty they have, which is counting the votes and the peaceful transfer of power. So, I think it is a tragic day, despite the amazing performance by those lawyers. There are two bright spots, however. One is what you just heard Jamie Raskin say, the most bipartisan impeachment vote in U.S. history. And we've heard that a bunch in the last hour, but here are the details. I mean, it's really hard if you're the president to get even one vote of your party against you. It's literally only happened once before. President Johnson was impeached in 1867 and then President Clinton in the 90s, and none. There were 223 different votes cast at that point by senators, not one crossover vote. The only time we've ever had a crossover vote before was Romney during Trump's first impeachment. And now, of course, there's 7 of these crossover votes. Then the second thing is the McConnell statement, which is incredibly striking to me. I mean, McConnell could have just said, like Susan Collins, tisk, 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 that kind of style of thing. McConnell went so much further than that, even calling for criminal sanctions. And this is a guy who used to be part of Trump's, this is all a witch hunt against you crowd and stuff like that. So this is really striking to me. I mean, McConnell went way further than even Chuck Schumer did in attacking Trump. And I was a little surprised by Schumer's comments because Schumer basically made it all out to be Trump sent rioters to the Capitol to stop the certification and the like. And that's true. But here's what you didn't hear him say. There were senators in that very room when Senator Schumer was speaking who tried to stop the certification. It wasn't just the rioters. These senators did that, and 126 members of the House. And so these senators today, some of them voted to acquit themselves. And so as we think about the future, I think we have to think about that. I know I've been talking for a long time, but let me just on the 14th Amendment, there is this separate clause in the Constitution which says if you've been an insurrectionist, then the Congress can pass a bill to remove you, to basically bar you from future office holding. It does require only a simple majority, so it is possible to do. However, it may also require a court process to adjudicate guilt or innocence. I think we should welcome that. I think Donald Trump would be scared out of his mind for that court process.
Neil, I want to hit you with one more. I thought I heard Congressman Raskin say on his way out the door that they had a supermajority who recognized guilt. And I've gone through all the Republican statements that have come through the wire, and I'm not quite at 67, but you've got the Republicans like McConnell. I read Senator Portman's statement. They're not disputing any of the conduct, which was proven through videos, proven through testimony, proven through the evidence of Pence. And then it was the evidence that was stitched together in the final hours this morning. The Congresswoman recounting and going on the record and entering into evidence this call with McCarthy, where Trump clearly takes the side of the insurrectionists. I want to ask you about the case. I thought it was as strong against the constitutionality argument, but as I read these statements and the Republicans hiding under the skirt of what sounds like a bogus claim about what the Constitution says, and you had in the day before the trial, far-right conservative lawyer Chuck Cooper come out in the pages of the Wall Street Journal debunking the constitutional claim. I thought this was some of the most airtight evidence. They literally put the Constitution up, which is a Republican shtick. That's what Republicans do. The Democrats had the letter of the law on their side. They had the constitutional claim. They had plenty of conservative lawyers, but that seems to be what they're hiding behind today. And I wonder what you make of that.
I think it's really unfortunate because the whole point, our founders, if you read the Philadelphia Convention debates, the reason why our founders gave impeachment to the Senate to vote on is that they're popularly accountable, that you can understand their reasons and they have to make a decision. And here, people like McConnell just basically use this as a dodge, as you say, to get out from under the skirts and so on. And that's just a horrible way to run a government. The bright side of that, however, is that there is, if not a supermajority, pretty darn close to that, saying that Trump actually did it. And that could be relevant to set up Brian's point before about the 14th Amendment. I think nobody really wants to go through this whole thing again. But in a world in which you have a supermajority in the Senate saying, yeah, this guy did it, it's very simple for them to pass a bill that just says, court, now you decide, you adjudicate this. And then you're not tying up the Senate business or anything like that.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.